The world has taught you a lie about value. You have been conditioned to believe that money flows toward credentials, toward titles. You have been told that if you just keep grinding, if you just stay loyal, if you just follow the rules, and year after year you watch this promise fail to materialize. You see people with less experience, less education, less dedication, somehow attracting wealth, opportunities. The system feels rigged, the game feels unfair, and so you conclude that value must be arbitrary, that success is random, that those who win simply got lucky. But what if I told you that value is not subjective at all? What if there exists a precise, predictable, almost mechanical relationship between what you create and what if the reason you have not achieved financial freedom is not because you lack talent? The truth is that wealth does not flow toward those who work hardest. Wealth flows toward those who solve the most valuable problems for the most people in the most efficient way. And the difference between someone who remains trapped in financial struggle and someone who achieves true, it is not intelligence, it is not even skill. The difference is understanding, the difference is mindset. This video will take you through a complete intellectual and practical framework for understanding value.
Not surface-level advice, not motivational platitudes,
but a deep philosophical and strategic map that will fundamentally alter how you approach work, money. By the end of this journey, you will know exactly how to create value in any situation, in any industry. But I must warn you, this knowledge is dangerous for those who are not ready. It will force you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. It will require you to abandon comforting delusions. And it will demand that you take full responsibility for where you are and where you are going. If you are ready for that level of truth, then stay with me, because what comes next will change everything. Let us begin with the foundation. Before we can talk about creating value, we must talk about the engine that drives all value creation. We must talk about how you think. Most people believe that change happens through discipline, through willpower. And while discipline matters, it is not the root. The root is deeper. The root is your mindset. And here is where most people fail before they even begin. They approach their limitations as fixed facts about who they are. They say things like, I am not good with money, I am not creative, I am not a people person, I am not technically skilled. And in making these statements, they lock themselves into an identity that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what psychologist Carol Dweck identified as a fixed mindset. The belief that your abilities, your intelligence, your talents are static traits that cannot be fundamentally. People with a fixed mindset see challenges as threats. They avoid situations where they might fail because failure confirms their worst fears about themselves. They interpret criticism as a personal attack. They feel threatened by the success of others because it suggests they are inadequate by comparison. And most devastatingly, they give up easily when things become difficult because difficulty is interpreted as. Contrast this with what Dweck calls a growth mindset. This is the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and effort. That intelligence is not a fixed quantity but a muscle that strengthens with use. That failure is not a verdict on who you are, but simply information about what needs to be adjusted. People with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities. They persist in the face of setbacks because setbacks are expected and necessary parts of learning. They embrace criticism because it helps them improve. They are inspired by the success of others because it shows what is possible. And here is what matters for your financial freedom. People with a growth mindset create exponentially more value over time because they are constantly learning, while the fixed mindset person remains trapped in the same patterns year after year. But recognizing the difference between these mindsets is only the beginning. You must actively cultivate the growth mindset in yourself, and there are specific techniques for doing this. The most powerful is what I call the power of yet. This is a simple linguistic tool that transforms how you perceive your current limitations. When you catch yourself thinking or saying, I cannot do this, you add one word, yet.
I cannot do this yet. I do not understand marketing yet.
I do not have the resources yet. I am not skilled enough yet. This single word shifts your brain from viewing your current state as a permanent identity to viewing it as a It opens up possibility. It creates a path forward. It transforms frustration into curiosity. And over time, this seemingly small shift in language rewires how you approach obstacles. Instead of shutting down when you encounter something you do not know, you ask, what do I need to learn? Who do I need to become? What is the next smallest step I can take? This is not positive thinking. This is not self-deception. This is accurate thinking. Because the reality is that almost any skill, any knowledge, the question is never, can I do this? The question is always, am I willing to do what it takes to be able to do this? And when you understand that distinction, everything changes. Now let us go deeper. One of the most common barriers to adopting a growth mindset is how we interpret failure. In a fixed mindset, failure is catastrophic. It means you are not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. And because failure feels so threatening, people with a fixed mindset avoid risk. They play small. They stay in their comfort zones. And in doing so, they guarantee that they will never create significant value, because significant value always... But here is the truth about failure. Failure is not a verdict. Failure is a diagnosis. When something does not work, it is not telling you that you are inadequate. It is telling you what needs to be adjusted. It is feedback. It is information. And the faster you can collect feedback, the faster you can improve. This is why the most successful people in any field fail more often than everyone else. Not because they are reckless, but because they understand that failure is the cost of learning. They run experiments, they test hypotheses, they iterate rapidly. And each failure brings them closer to a solution that works. Think about it this way. If you are trying to build a business and your first product fails, what have you actually learned? You have learned what the market does not want. You have learned what messaging does not resonate. You have learned what price point is too high. You have learned what distribution channels do not work. This is incredibly valuable information, but only if you are willing to see it as such. The person with a fixed mindset interprets this failure as proof that they are not cut out for. The person with a growth mindset interprets it as data that informs their next iteration. And this difference in interpretation determines everything. One person quits. The other person adapts, and eventually the one who adapts succeeds. This is not luck, this is inevitability. If you are willing to keep iterating, keep learning, keep adjusting based on feedback, the only way to fail permanently is to stop trying. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. Growth requires discomfort. In fact, discomfort is not just a side effect of growth. Discomfort is the signal that growth is happening. When you are learning a new skill, you will feel incompetent. When you are stepping into a new role, you will feel out of your depth. When you are taking on a challenge beyond your current capabilities, you will feel uncertain and vulnerable. And this is exactly as it should be. The problem is that most people interpret discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. They think if this were the right path, it would feel easy. If I were truly talented, I would not struggle. But this is backwards. Struggle is how you expand. If you are never uncomfortable, it means you are never growing. It means you are operating entirely within the boundaries of what you already know how to do. And if you are only ever doing what you already know how to do, your value in the marketplace cannot increase. You become replaceable. You become stagnant. And stagnation in an economy that rewards innovation and adaptation. So you must learn to reframe discomfort. When you feel that tension, that frustration, that sense of being overwhelmed, you do not retreat.
You recognize it, you name it.
You say to yourself, this is growth. This is what it feels like to become more capable. This discomfort is temporary, but the skills I am building are permanent. And you lean into it, not recklessly, not without support or strategy, but deliberately. Because on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that can solve problems you currently cannot. And that version of you is worth infinitely more in the marketplace. Now let us talk about criticism. Because if you are creating anything of value, if you are putting yourself out there in any meaningful way, some of that criticism will be constructive. Some of it will be harsh.
Some of it will be completely unfounded.
And how you handle criticism is one of the clearest indicators of whether you have a fixed or growth mindset. The fixed mindset person hears criticism and immediately becomes defensive. They feel attacked. They dismiss the critic as jealous, ignorant, or malicious. They protect their ego at the cost of learning. The growth mindset person, on the other hand, asks, is there any truth in this? Even if the criticism is delivered poorly, even if the critic has bad intentions,
Can I extract a kernel of insight that will make me better?
this does not mean you accept every criticism as valid. It does not mean you let others define your worth. But it does mean you are secure enough to separate the signal from the noise. You are confident enough to consider feedback without feeling threatened by it. And this ability to metabolize criticism, to transform even harsh or unfair critiques into fuel for... Let me give you an example. Imagine you create a piece of content, a video, an article, a product. You clearly do not know what you are doing. The fixed mindset response is to feel hurt, to lash out. The growth mindset response is to ask, why did this person have that reaction? Is there something unclear in my communication? Is my target audience wrong? Am I positioning this incorrectly? Is there a skill gap I need to address? And then you take action based on that analysis. Maybe you study communication techniques. Maybe you refine your audience targeting. Maybe you invest in learning the fundamentals you are missing. The criticism becomes a compass. It points you toward what needs to improve. And over time, as you address these gaps, the criticism changes. It becomes less frequent,
Less severe, and eventually it is drowned out by praise, by success, by results.
but none of that happens if you let the criticism stop you. Which brings us to one of the most insidious enemies of growth and value creation: perfectionism. Now, on the surface, perfectionism seems like a virtue. It seems like high standards, like commitment to excellence. But in reality, perfectionism is a form of fear. It is the fear of being judged, the fear of being exposed as inadequate. And it manifests as an inability to ship, to publish, to launch. But here is the problem: perfect does not exist. There is no such thing as a perfect video, a perfect product, a perfect business model. Everything can always be improved. And if you wait until your work is perfect before you share it, you will never share it. You will remain in an endless cycle of refinement, of tweaking, of second-guessing. And while you are trapped in that cycle, others who are willing to ship imperfect work are learning from the antidote to perfectionism is what I call the bias toward action. You set a standard that is good enough, not perfect. You ship your work even when it makes you nervous. You understand that version 1 is supposed to be rough, that your first attempt is supposed to be flawed.
And you give yourself permission to improve in public.
Because the truth is that you learn more from one real interaction with the market than from 100 hours. When you put something out there, you get feedback. You see what resonates and what does not. You discover gaps you did not even know existed. And you use all of that information to make version 2 better, and version 3 better, and version 10 better. Over time, your work becomes genuinely excellent. Not because you waited until it was perfect, but because you were willing to iterate in public. This is how all great work is built: through successive approximation, through feedback loops, through the courage to be imperfect. And this connects directly to another crucial principle. You must learn to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Most people are outcome-focused. They set a goal. They say, I want to make $1 million. I want to build a successful business. I want to achieve financial freedom. And then they judge themselves entirely based on whether they achieve that outcome. The problem with this approach is that outcomes are often outside your direct control. You can do everything right and still fail because of market conditions, timing, luck. And when you tie your sense of progress and self-worth entirely to outcomes, because most of the time you are not hitting the outcome. Most of the time you are in the messy middle, working toward the goal, but not there yet. Process focus is different. Process focus means you identify the behaviors, the habits, and then you judge yourself based on whether you are executing those behaviors consistently. Did I do my research today? Did I create content today? Did I reach out to potential clients today? Did I improve my skills today? These are things entirely within your control. And when you focus on the process, two things happen. First, you build genuine competence because the process is what actually develops skill. Second, you create a sustainable source of motivation because you can win every single day.
Even if the big outcome is still far away, you can look at today and say, I did what I said I would do. I showed up, I executed.
I am becoming the person who achieves that outcome. And over time, as you consistently execute the process, the outcome becomes inevitable. Not because you forced it, but because you built the foundation that makes it possible. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out in value creation. Imagine you want to start a consulting business. The outcome you want is to have consistent high-paying clients and financial freedom. But if you focus only on that outcome, you will feel frustrated every day you do not have clients. You will feel like you are failing. Process focus looks different. You identify the activities that lead to clients, networking, creating valuable content that demonstrates expertise, reaching out to potential clients, refining your offer, building case studies, and you commit to doing those activities consistently regardless of immediate results. Maybe you commit to publishing one piece of valuable content every week, to reaching out to 10 potential clients every week, to attending 2 networking events every month. These are your process goals, and every week you execute them, you win. You are on the path, you are doing the work. And here is what happens. After a few weeks or months of consistent execution, you start to see results. Someone reaches out because they read your content. A conversation turns into a client. A referral comes through. And those early wins compound. Your reputation grows, your skills sharpen, your network expands, and eventually the outcome you wanted arrives. Not as a lucky break, but as the natural consequence of consistent, focused execution. This is the power of process focus. It transforms the journey from an anxious, uncertain struggle into a series of daily victories. And it ensures that even if the specific outcome you imagine does not materialize, you build skills, you build reputation, you build relationships, and those assets will create opportunities you could not have predicted. This is how real wealth is built, not through one big lucky break, but through the compounding effect of consistent strategic action over time. Now, everything I have just shared with you is foundational, but it is only valuable if you act on it. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. It is just intellectual stimulation. And I know that many of you watching this right now are nodding along, agreeing with what I am saying. You will go back to the same patterns, the same excuses, the same limitations. And a year from now, you will be in the exact same place, wondering why nothing has changed. So let me make this very clear. The time to change is not tomorrow. The time to change is not when you feel ready. The time to change is right now, today, this moment. Because waiting for the perfect time, waiting until you have all the answers, waiting until you feel confident, it is the belief that change happens to you rather than through you. And that belief will keep you trapped forever. So here is what I want you to do. If you are serious about achieving financial freedom in the new year that is coming, in the comments below, I want you to write one sentence. I am committed to developing a growth mindset and creating real value in the new year. That is it. Just one sentence. And I know what some of you are thinking. How is writing a comment going to change anything? Let me tell you why this matters. Public commitment changes behavior. When you declare something publicly, you create social accountability. Your brain registers that other people now know about your intention. You are more likely to follow through because following through reinforces your identity as someone who keeps. This is not superstition, this is behavioral science. Studies on goal achievement consistently show that people who make public commitments are significantly more. So do not skip this step. Write the comment. Make the declaration. And while you are at it, hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel, not because I need your approval, but because those actions are micro-commitments. They are small signals to yourself that you are serious, that you are paying attention, that you are choosing to align yourself with growth rather than stagnation. Every action you take, no matter how small, reinforces a pattern. So choose to reinforce the pattern of commitment, of engagement, of showing up for yourself. Write the comment now. I will wait. Good. If you did that, you have just taken the first step. You have declared your intention. You have made it real. And now we are going to go deeper, because what I have shared with you so far is the foundation. It is the mindset shift. It is the mental operating system that makes everything else possible. But mindset alone is not enough. Mindset is the engine, but you still need a map. You still need to know where to direct that engine. And that is what we are going to explore now. The second half of this journey is about the specific strategies, the specific principles, and I will warn you again, what comes next is more advanced, more nuanced, more potentially dangerous if misunderstood, because we are going to talk about how to identify valuable problems, how to position yourself as the solution. This is the knowledge that the top 1% operates on while everyone else remains distracted by. So if you are not ready to think strategically, if you are not ready to take full responsibility but if you are ready, if you are hungry, if you are willing to do what it takes, then stay with me. Because what comes next will give you an unfair advantage in every area of your life. Let us start by addressing a critical misunderstanding. Most people think that creating value means working harder. They think if they just put in more hours, if they just grind more intensely, they will eventually be rewarded. But this is not how value works. Value is not measured by effort. Value is measured by impact, by transformation, by the magnitude of the problem you solve multiplied by the number of people you solve it for. You can work 16 hours a day doing something that no one cares about, and you will create zero value. Or you can work 4 hours a day solving a critical problem for the right people. The market does not care how hard you work. The market cares about results, about outcomes, about whether you made someone's life better, easier, more profitable, more enjoyable, or more meaningful. And this is where most people go wrong. They focus on inputs rather than outputs. They confuse activity with productivity. They stay busy but never become valuable. So the first strategic question you must ask yourself is, what problem am I solving, and for whom? If you cannot answer that question with precision, you are not creating value. You are just existing. You are just occupying space. And the market will treat you accordingly. It will pay you the minimum necessary to keep you around. But here is the opportunity. The world is full of valuable problems. Problems that people desperately want solved. Problems that cause pain, frustration, lost revenue, wasted time, or diminished quality of life. And if you can position yourself as the person who solves one of those problems better than anyone else,
Not because you deserve it, not because you worked hard,
but because you are providing something the market values, and the market always rewards value. But identifying a valuable problem is only half the equation. You also need to develop the skills to solve it. And this is where the growth mindset becomes practical, because most valuable problems require capabilities you do not currently have. They require knowledge you have not yet acquired. They require experience you have not yet gained. And this is where the power of yet becomes a strategic tool. You look at the problem, you look at the skills required to solve it, and you say, I do not have those skills yet. What do I need to learn? Who do I need to learn from? What is the fastest path to competence? And then you go acquire those skills. Not through years of formal education, not through waiting for permission, but through deliberate, focused learning, through online courses, through mentorship, through practice, through iteration. This is the age of information abundance. You can learn almost anything if you are willing to invest the time and focus. The barrier is not access. The barrier is commitment. Let me give you a tactical framework for skill acquisition. First, you identify the micro skills. You break down the larger capability into its component parts. If you want to build a business, you do not just need to know business. You need to know marketing, sales, product development, customer service, operations, finance. Each of these is a separate skill, and each can be broken down further. Marketing includes copywriting, audience research, channel strategy, analytics, and more. Do not try to learn everything at once. That is overwhelming and ineffective. Instead, you identify the one micro skill that will have the greatest impact on your current situation. You become competent in that one area, and then you move to the next. Over time, you build a stack of valuable skills, and that stack becomes your competitive advantage. Because while most people remain generalists, you become a specialist in solving a specific valuable problem. But skills alone are still not enough, because skills are just potential. They only become valuable when applied in the right context, to the right people, at the right time. And this is where positioning matters. Positioning is how you communicate your value to the market. It is how you make yourself visible to the people who need what you offer. And most people are terrible at positioning. They undersell themselves. They hide their expertise. They assume that if they just do good work, someone will notice. But that is not how the world works. Good work done in obscurity creates zero value.
Because no one knows it exists.
You have to learn to articulate what you do, who you do it for, and why it matters. You have to learn to tell stories that make your value undeniable. And you have to learn to put yourself in front of the right people. This is where most technically skilled people fail. They have the capability, but they do not have the communication skills or the strategic positioning to turn. And this is a solvable problem. You do not need to become a master salesperson. You do not need to be charismatic or extroverted. You just need to be clear. Clear about the problem you solve, clear about the results you deliver, clear about who benefits most from working with you. And you need to be consistent. You need to show up. You need to create content, build relationships, demonstrate expertise, and make yourself known. Over time, as you consistently communicate your value, the right people will find you. The right opportunities will appear, and your financial situation will transform. Not because you got lucky, but because you became visible. Now let us talk about leverage. Because even if you have valuable skills and great positioning, if you are selling hours, you can only ever earn what one person can produce in the limited hours available to. This is the trap that keeps most people from achieving true financial freedom. They are stuck in a linear relationship between effort and income. To earn more, they have to work more. And there are only so many hours in a day. Leverage is how you break that relationship. Leverage is how you create value once and get paid for it many times. There are several forms of leverage, but the most accessible in the modern economy are media leverage and...
Media leverage means creating content that reaches thousands or millions of people.
A video, an article, a podcast episode, a social media post. You create it once and it works for you indefinitely. Product leverage means creating something that can be sold repeatedly without additional effort from you. A course, a template, a software tool, a book. You build it once and it generates income while you sleep. This is how wealth is truly built. Through assets that compound, through systems that scale. And the beautiful thing is that the barrier to entry for both media and product leverage has never been lower. You do not need a publisher. You do not need a factory. You just need the commitment to create and the strategic understanding of what the market values. But here is the final and most important principle. All of this, the mindset, the skills, the positioning, the leverage, it all depends on one thing. Your environment, because your environment is more powerful than your willpower. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if your environment is not designed to support the behaviors, this is why people who join a gym on January 1st quit by February. Their environment has not changed. Their routines have not changed. Their social circle has not changed. And so they default back to the path of least resistance. If you want lasting change, you have to engineer your environment. You have to remove friction from the behaviors you want to encourage and add friction to the behaviors if you want to wake up early, put your phone in another room so you have to physically get out of bed to turn. If you want to create content consistently, set up your workspace the night before so there is no barrier. If you want to build valuable skills, surround yourself with people who are already doing what you want to do, because your social environment shapes your behavior more than anything else. You become the average of the people you spend the most time with, not because of some mystical force, but because humans are social creatures. We adopt the norms, the standards, the beliefs of our peer group. So if you want to achieve financial freedom, you need to immerse yourself in environments where creating value is expected, where growth is the default. And you need to remove yourself from environments where mediocrity is accepted, where complaining is rewarded. This might mean difficult choices, It might mean distancing yourself from friends or family members who drain your energy or reinforce limiting. It might mean investing in communities, masterminds, or coaching programs where the standards are higher. It might mean relocating to a city where opportunity is more abundant. These are not easy decisions, but they are necessary if you are serious, because you cannot outwork a toxic environment. You cannot outdiscipline a social circle that pulls you backward. You have to change the context. And when you do, everything else becomes easier. The behaviors you struggle to maintain become automatic. The goals that felt impossible become inevitable because you are no longer fighting against your environment. You are being carried by it. So here is where we are. You now understand that financial freedom in the new year is not about luck. It is not about talent. It is not even about hard work in the traditional sense. It is about mindset. It is about skill. It is about positioning. It is about leverage, and it is about environment. You have the map. You have the principles. You have the framework. The only question now is whether you will use it, whether you will take this knowledge and turn it into action, or whether you will let it become just another piece of content you consumed and forgot. And I will tell you right now, most people watching this will do nothing. They will nod along. They will feel inspired for a moment, and then they will return to their old patterns. But you do not have to be most people. You can be the exception. You can be the one who actually changes, who actually commits, who actually builds the life they want instead of just dreaming about it. The path is clear. Start with mindset. Adopt the growth mindset. Use the power of yet. Reframe failure as feedback. Embrace discomfort as growth. Metabolize criticism. Reject perfectionism. Focus on process. Then move to skill. Identify the valuable problem you want to solve. Break it down into micro skills. Learn them one at a time. Build your stack. Next, work on positioning. Make yourself visible. Communicate your value clearly and consistently. Build your reputation, then add leverage. Create assets that scale, media, products, systems. And finally, engineer your environment. Remove friction from success. Add friction to failure. Surround yourself with people who elevate you.
And execute every single day.
With intention, with focus, with commitment. This is the formula. This is how value is created. This is how financial freedom is achieved, not through magic, not through shortcuts, but through strategic, consistent, intelligent action over time. And if you are still with me, if you made it to the end of this video, that tells me something about you. It tells me you are serious. It tells me you are willing to do the work. It tells me you are ready for the next level. So let me leave you with this final thought. The year ahead is not going to be easy. The economy is uncertain. Competition is fierce. The world is changing faster than ever. But that does not have to be a threat. It can be an opportunity, because chaos creates gaps, disruption creates openings. And those who understand how to create value, how to adapt, how to position themselves strategically, you have the knowledge now, you have the framework. The only thing left is the decision. Will you use it? Will you commit? Will you become the person who creates the life you want instead of waiting for it to be given to you?
I cannot make that decision for you, but I can tell you this.
If you do commit, if you do execute, if you do take full responsibility for your results,
Not because the world changed, but because you did.
now go take the first step, and I will see you at the top.